Winston Churchill was a prominent British politician and writer who rose to prominence as the country's prime minister during World War II. During what is commonly called the darkest hour of the war, he gained fame for his unwavering defiance of Hitler. Winston was born into an illustrious family headed by the Duke of Marlborough and the royal family at Blenheim Palace in Woodstock, close to Oxford. He spent a significant portion of his boyhood at the esteemed boarding school Harrow, was nurtured by family friends and servants, and seldom spoke to his father. Churchill was supposedly sluggish to learn, although he was not a great student because of his defiant personality. On the other hand, he was very athletic and enjoyed his time in the Officer Cadet Corps. Churchill went to Sandhurst to enroll as a military officer after finishing high school. He sought out active military experience to the fullest extent feasible after getting his commission. He got postings to war zones through his mother's contacts. As a young man, Churchill served in the military and as a war correspondent in Cuba and Northwest India. He made a great deal of money from his reporting from the front. Churchill withdrew from active duty in 1899 to devote himself full-time to his work as a war correspondent. During the Boer War, he was in South Africa and became somewhat famous for being on a scouting patrol, being captured by the enemy, and then escaping. He may have been deserving of the Victoria Cross, although he is a civilian at the moment. This experience led to his temporary commission in the South African Light Horse, and he went on to say that he had a good war while reporting the conflict for the media. After his return to the UK in 1900, Churchill campaigned for Oldham as a Conservative and was victorious. After becoming an MP, Churchill embarked on a successful speaking tour, charging exorbitant fees for his lectures. His political leanings changed dramatically in 1904 when he switched parties, joining the Liberals from the Conservatives. Some of his former Conservative colleagues began to refer to him as a class traitor because of this choice. More and more conservative policies, especially those pertaining to tariff protection, were causing Churchill to disagree. He was deeply committed to promoting a better life for the working class and providing relief to the impoverished. He had a spectacular ascent through the ranks of the Liberal Party. He had already been knighted in 1908 and was an outspoken advocate for Lloyd George's radical people's budget when he became president of the Board of Trade. A welfare state was born out of this budget, which also saw the establishment of an income tax to support it. The budget helped alleviate severe social inequality in Britain and made a huge difference in the lives of the poor. But Churchill was still quite anti-socialist and distrustful of unions, even if he was a Liberal Party member. He was resolute in his pursuit of Union defeat during the general strike. Throughout the First World War, Churchill served as the First Lord of the Admiralty, a post he was appointed to in 1911. One of the most outspoken cabinet members when war broke out in Europe, Churchill pushed hard for British intervention. A number of Liberal cabinet members were opposed to starting a war on the European continent in August 1914. Nevertheless, Churchill's perspective ultimately won out, and he freely confessed to being thrilled about Britain's engagement in the Great War. Upon arriving in Belgium, Churchill issued a rallying cry to the Royal Marines, ordering them to attack in the vicinity of Antwerp. Some thought it was a waste of money, while proponents of the move said it kept the Channel ports safe from the onrushing German army. Because Churchill thought the tank might be the deciding factor in the war, he also allotted naval monies to help develop it. He was very passionate about the war, but his boldest military strategy, the Dardanelles campaign of 1915, was a complete bust, leading to thousands of deaths for the Allies and no victories. Despite the fact that others felt the same way, Churchill nonetheless decided to quit and try to get a job fighting on the Western Front. He went back to London, sat on the opposition benches, and eventually joined Lloyd George's coalition administration in 1917 after seeing little activity there. Appointed Minister of Munitions, Churchill was tasked with effectively managing the war effort's limited resources. A competent and effective minister, he was highly regarded. When the Russian White Army was fighting the communist forces who had taken over the Soviet Union at the end of World War I, Churchill made an effort to lend them his support. For the position of Chancellor of the Exchequer, Conservative Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin nominated Churchill in 1924. After hearing the opinions of numerous economists, Churchill decided to put Britain back on the gold standard, just as it had been before the war. But the economy suffered as a result, and deflation, high unemployment, and slow development followed. This was Churchill's worst home blunder, he acknowledged afterwards. Churchill wanted to end the strike and defeat the Unions badly during the general strike of 1926, which was partly caused by the economic downturn that followed. Churchill held Mussolini in high esteem as a strong leader during this time. He was a staunch opponent of appeasement and advocated for the government to rearm despite being demoted to the backbenches in the 1930s due to his political eccentricity. Churchill was often the only one to raise the alarm whenever Hitler's Germany faced threats. Being an ardent ally of the British Empire, he was also opposed to Indian independence. The House of Commons chose Churchill to head the United Kingdom in a national coalition, following a difficult beginning to World War II. By going against the cabinet's plans to negotiate with Hitler, he played a crucial role in keeping Britain in the war. As a great orator, Churchill demonstrated his mettle as a war commander and provided a strong call to arms for a nation that persevered through the dark years of 1940 and 1941 on its own. During these initial years, the German invasion of Britain appeared imminent, and the Battle of Britain and the Blitz occurred. The immediate crisis passed, and the war's tide started to change after the United States' entry into the war in 1942. Churchill famously addressed the House of Commons, "Now this is not the end," after the Battle of El Alamein. It may be the end of an era, but it is hardly the start of the end. After 1943, Churchill devoted more effort to overseeing the tense Allied coalition, which comprised the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union. While he was active throughout the war, the planning of the Normandy invasion on D-Day was where his attention was most keenly focused. Along with Stalin and Roosevelt, Churchill took part in a number of important discussions that shaped the war and its aftermath. Churchill was instrumental in guiding the Allies away from the pitfalls of the post-World War I era, with financial backing from the United States. In their efforts to rebuild occupied Europe, the Allies aimed to avoid a harsh peace settlement. Churchill was taken aback when the Labour Party, which had recently emerged victorious in World War II, defeated him in the general election of 1945. After embracing most of the post-war consensus and the demise of the British Empire, he emerged victorious in the 1950 election and remained in power until 1951, when he stepped down as opposition leader. From 1951 until 1955, Churchill was prime minister before stepping down from politics. The day may dawn when fair play, love for one's fellow men, respect for justice, and freedom will enable tormented generations to march forth triumphant from the hideous epoch in which we have to dwell, he said in his final speech to the House of Commons on March 1st, which was his last night there. In the meanwhile, keep going strong, and never give up. For his eloquent support of lofty human principles and his skill in historical and biographical description, Churchill was bestowed the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. As he grew older, Churchill developed into a skilled artist. He made it to 90 years of age despite struggling with depression and finding retirement tough. On Sunday morning, January 24th, 1965, Churchill passed away at his residence. As far as anyone could tell, his funeral was the biggest state funeral ever.